Professor Bala Ganapati Devarakonda, Professor and Head Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi, will talk on the topic Philosophical Reflections on New Normal. I feel honored to be able to introduce a person of such high esteem to my participants. Professor Bala Ganapati Devarakonda is presently heading the Department of Philosophy at University of Delhi. His research interests are in the areas of Indian philosophy, philosophy of religion, and social and political philosophy. In addition to teaching and research, he is a certified philosophical counselor by American Philosophy Practitioners Association, New York. Some of his publications include Philosophical Doctrines of Andhakas, Exploring Early Buddhist Sects of Andhra, Revisiting Dana, a response to Eurocentric approaches, Relearning to be at peace, Exploring alternative conceptions, Hinduism in Thailand, its presence and absence, Role of Guru as an interpreter of Dharma, Orientalist and nationalist writings of Indian philosophy, and History of Indian philosophy, analysis of contemporary understanding of classical through colonial. South Asia Press is bringing out a new edition of Leviathan of Thomas Hobbes with a detailed introduction by Professor Bala. He is presently working on a project titled Yoga Consciousness in Mahabharata, the Ethical Value for Societal Political Well-being, under SPAR, and has completed a major funding research project under ICSSR, Culture Through the Labyrinth of Globalization, a study of popular imaginations and alternative narratives of digital and non-digital Telugu literature. He is serving as the regional coordinator of India of Council for Research in Values and Philosophy, Washington, D.C., and Chief Advisor to the Center for Ethics and Values, Ramanujan College, New Delhi. Professor Bala Ganapati is presently the guest editor of a special issue on Indian perspectives on philosophical counseling for the Journal of APPA Philosophical Practice. He was the editor-in-chief, International Journal of Applied Ethics, an annual peer-reviewed multidisciplinary journal published by Ramanujan College, Delhi, India. Member of Editorial Board, Journal of Indian Council of Philosophical Research, Springer, from 16 to 19. And guest editor, special issue on intersections of philosophy and poetry of Interdisciplinary Journal of Literature and Language. Professor Bala Ganapati is presently a member of the Research Project Committee of Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi, and a member of the committee constituted by UGC, New Delhi, for drafting learning outcomes-based curriculum framework for philosophy. He is a Chancellor's nominee for the Board of Management of Mohan Lal Sukhadia University, Udaipur. He was the chairman of the governing body of Maitre College, New Delhi, and is a member of the governing body of Bhagini Nivedita College, New Delhi. He was a member of the Review Committee of Indian Council of Philosophical Research, constituted by MHRD, Government of India. At the end, I can only say that we are extremely fortunate to have you amongst us. Sir, the floor is yours to strike. You have already been waiting for quite some time now. We are waiting to hear you.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Dr. Sutapare, for this kind introduction. I hope I am audible, right?
Yeah. Sir. Yes, yes, sir.
Right. Thank you. Dr. Subrata Kumar Ray, Principal, Prabhu Jagatbandhu College, Kolkata. Dr. Shivkumar, Regional Director, IGNO Regional Center, Kolkata. Dr. Sutapare, Head Department of Philosophy, Prabhu Jagatbandhu College, Kolkata. And my co-panelists of today's session, Dr. Saibal Chandrapal and Dr. Shyamashri Bhattacharya, and the organizing team which has taken the trouble of hosting this webinar, and the participants and viewers. Namaste to all of you. At the outset, I must thank Dr. Sutapare for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with you all, and also to recapitulate my ideas on what is normal and what is new normal. So I express my gratitude to Dr. Sutapare for this wonderful invite that she has given me. Let me now before I get into the topic, may I ask how much time do I have? Like 40 minutes? Is that okay if I take 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have 40 minutes to 1 hour.
Yeah, I will not bore you with 1 hour lecture, though I'm used to 2 hours lectures. I'll try to limit myself to 45 minutes so that I can give you a comprehensive idea of what I'm thinking and what is going on in my mind.
Sure, sir.
Let me begin with the topic that is given, like the context. The topic of the seminar, its webinar itself is contextualism revisited in present times, ethical and moral considerations. So we are talking about contextualism, and we are saying that there is a need to revisit it because of whatever conditions that we are in now. So if that is the case, my thought goes first towards the term contextualism. How do we understand this concept, context? Okay, what is the context that we are referring to here, right? So because this is important, because when we try to understand when we try to understand context, it is not that it obviously tells us that the present is important, but it also tells us that whenever we talk about context, the context or the present always stand on the shoulders of the past. So past is also important because the past is the one which laid foundation for the present. So the context that we are talking about of the present is shouldered by the past, and this is important. So that's how we have to go back to the past to understand the present. In the similar way, it is not enough if we only talk about the present, because every time, every action of the individual and every thought of the individual is, though it is rooted in the present, but it always tries to aspire something towards the future. That is how, when we talk about context, in fact, what we are trying to say at this present moment, we are shouldered by the past and we have aspirations for the future. And that is how the context is a combination of past, present, and the future. So, my lecture today would be rooted in all these three aspects of time. Okay. So, having said that, there are certain questions that I would like to deal with in this presentation. For example, I would begin with something called what occasioned this new normal that I am referring to, because I am referring to basically, as I mentioned, my topic for today is philosophical reflections on the new normal. So, we are saying that there is something called new normal that has come into existence, and if that is the case, what kind of philosophical reflections can we have on this concept called new normal? Is my specific area of concentration for today's talk, and I would be trying to deal with certain questions in the process of the talk. One of the questions is what occasioned this new normal that we are talking about. We all know that it is COVID-19 which has occasioned this talk on new normal. So that I would be dealing with in the first part as an introduction, and then I
I suppose we are having some problems connecting with him. I would request the participants to please patiently wait for him to reconnect. Yes, sir. Sir, you have to unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, as we
Yes, sir.
know, technology facilitates many things and it also obstruct at many places. No? So
Yes,
we have
yes.
to live with both. We have to enjoy its facilities. We also have to bear with its faults, no, wherever it lapses. So what I'm
Yes.
trying to say is, what occasion this new normal is the first question that I'm raising and I'm trying to respond to. It is, of course, this COVID-19 virus which has occasioned this new normal. There is no doubt about it, and we all agree with that. But what is very important is, what is this COVID-19 virus that we are referring to? Is it, when I ask this question, what I mean by this is it a living one or is it a non-living one? No. See, if we are talking about this virus, we have to answer this question like because if it is a completely living one, then it would have occasioned a different kind of new normal. If it is completely a non-living one, it would have occasioned a different kind of new normal, or probably there is no need of new normal at all. But what is it that we are referring to when we are referring to COVID-19, and how is this virus affected the new normal, which means whether it is living or non-living is very important for us to deal with. Okay, so if that is the case, right, how do we understand it? Is it living or is it non-living? We understand that it is both. How can it be both? Because it is living in the potential way, because as long as it inhibits, cohabits the human body or a human cell, it would be staying as something like dead. Only when it touches the human body, it starts multiplicating itself. So that is how, as long as it gets connected to the body or human cell or a cell where it can replicate, it is a dead. It is almost equal to dead one. But only when it touches the body, only when it touches a human cell where it can multiplicate itself, it becomes living. So which means, like as Shankaracharya in Advaita Vedanta says, Maya is anirvachaniya because it is real as long as you are in Maya, and it is unreal once you come out of this Maya. So that is, in the similar way, it is dead as long as it doesn't get connected to the living cell, and it is alive as and when it gets connected to the living cell. So this is an important characteristic which has changed our human course of action and which has occasioned this new normal that we are talking about. This characteristic of COVID-19 is very important to get into the concept of new normal for me. Okay. Now, if we are asking like what is new normal kind of a question, then this kind of a question, like it presupposes certain things, it assumes certain things. Okay, when we are asking this question, what is new normal? This new normal, are we referring to the present or are we referring to the future? Are we referring to the situation in which we are now? Okay, are we calling this the present instance to be new normal, or are we referring to the post-COVID to be the new normal? Is another important aspect that we have to clarify. For me, I believe that we are referring to the post-COVID world to be the new normal, and the present one in which we are living now is a transition period. Okay, some scholars are assuming that the transition period is new normal. So, but I don't agree with them completely. I assume that the post-COVID world would be the new normal, which is very difficult for us to deal with. So, and also when we refer to new normal, what we mean by that is we are assuming three things at least. One is there is normal, and the second one is something happened to the normal. So that's how we are in the transition period in which we are now. Okay, we are all, the world now is in transition period. Okay, there was a normal which is pre-COVID times, and there is a transition period, and there would be post-COVID times which would be new normal that we are referring to. So what I mean by this normal is, for example, in India, elsewhere in the world, COVID-19 has affected before COVID-19 has affected before December, before January 2020. But in India, in fact, it has come into India only during January, after January 2020. And that is how the pre-January 2020 time in India is the normal. Okay. And from January 2020 onwards, we are in this transition period. I don't know, and we don't know how long we are going to be in this transition period, but we would be reaching the post-transition period, which would be post-pandemic COVID-19. That would be the new normal that we are looking at. Okay, so this division is very important to me. Let me now take you further to understand what is this life in new normal that we are going to think of. So if we get into such kind of a quest, the first question that comes to us is, how do you understand life, human life? Okay, life means human life or any kind of life, for instance, but we would specifically refer to human life in this context. So what is life? Okay, so if I raise this question, let me answer it through my own explanation. Okay, for me, the individual, if he is living all alone in seclusion, or if he is living with himself, that's not completely a kind of life that we are referring to, that I am referring to as human life. Okay, because for me, individual in relation to the other is very important, and individual in relation to the other is the one which we can call as human life. Okay, so what I mean by this is, there are human beings. For example, there is a human being. Okay, we are all human beings, and we act and react, right? As human beings, we continuously act and also continuously react. Okay, when we act on the world that is around us, and we react to the world that reflects on us. Okay, so we act and react to the factual world that is around us. So you are an individual and you have a world which is factual world, which is a given world. For example, if you go by the existentialists, like you are a being in the world. So your being in the world is very important, which makes you be living in the world. Okay, so being in the world is very important here, and you are thrown into the world. So you as individual try to interact with the factual world, and this interaction is the one which makes you be living in this world. Okay, that's human life. And how do you interact with the world, factual world? You interact with the factual world through your psychophysical and spiritual and spiritual and cosmic being that you have. Okay, as an individual, some of us believe that we have psychophysical mechanism, and some of us believe that we, in addition to psychophysical, we also have spiritual mechanism which is existent within us. And some of us believe that along with psychophysical, spiritual, we also have a cosmic aspect within us, which makes us get connected with the world or universe around us. Okay, so if we go by that, okay, largely I'm going by the larger perspective. So that's how I would say we interact. The human being interacts with the factual world through this psychophysical, spiritual mechanism, spiritual and cosmic mechanism that we have. And this interaction is very important, and this interaction is the one which characterizes the human life as such. So it is not that the human being interacts with the world and he acts and reacts to the world and he affects the world. No, it is that the world in turn affects the individual as well. So that is how life is a multifaceted kind of one, because individual affects the world, and world in turn affects the individual, and this mutual affecting aspect is very important for us to develop our own worldview. Okay, and this worldview is the one which contributes to, which is contributed by our epistemology. Okay, so when since I understand that most of you are philosophy students and related to philosophy, you can clearly understand that epistemology is theory of knowledge. How you develop your knowledge is through certain kinds of means, and the study of that is epistemology. And how you develop your epistemology through your interaction with the world and world's affecting of it on in turn on you, and this process is the one which creates your epistemological tools, which in turn help you to construct your worldview, which is your metaphysics. So now we understand that the life as such, if we are referring to human life, what we are referring to is the self's relation with the other. Okay, and the other in this particular context is the factual world that I'm referring to. We can refer to the other to be many things, many more things as well, but I would be limiting myself to this because we have a limited time in which I am supposed to complete my presentation. So self and the other are very important, and their interaction and relation. It is not just interaction, it is the relation which is very important for us to understand what we mean by human life. Okay, so this is broadly the conception of life that I have, like human being, factual world, and psychophysical mechanism, psychophysical spiritual mechanism that we have, which interact with each other. So if this is the case, do we call this to be normal life? Okay, so probably before in India, if we are referring to India, I'm broadly referring to India. Okay, I don't want to go beyond that so that we can clearly give a reference point and go further on this on whatever I'm saying. So if we go by that, then what do we call? We call normal to be the pre-January 2020 times. So our life during that time was in this particular framework that I have referred to. Okay, all of us were interacting with the world, and the world was interacting with us, and we are free. Okay, so this is what is happening. So what is it that characterizes this new normal? No, when we what is this that characterizes this normal? No? This normal, the term normal is a very problematic term. For example, postmodernists would say it is not normal that we are referring to, it is normalized normal that we are referring to. It's not purely normal in that pure sense that we are referring to. The normal that we refer to as an ontological concept is only a normalized normal, but it's not a pure normal. But I don't want to get into such kind of a debate because that's not a part of my discussion here. But I want to understand what is this normal? What is it that characterizes this normal so that I can go further into new normal? Okay. These are a little philosophical reflections that I would like to get into so that we will understand the complete picture of the relation between our transition or paradigm shifts between normal and the new normal. Okay. So what is it? What are the things that characterize this normal? Number one, freedom. Okay. One of the most important aspects of human life and also the pre-COVID human life is freedom that you have enjoyed. All of us have enjoyed this freedom in thought, action, and in every aspect of the term. Okay, as much as possible. See, those who have argued for lack of freedom during that time would understand that now, putting themselves in the present situation, would understand that they have enjoyed freedom there and they don't have actually freedom now. So freedom in that way is a relative concept to the individual's conception. But even then, what I'm saying is we were free in certain broader sense than the present that I'm referring to here as freedom. So we were free in the pre-COVID times. And one of the most important aspects of human life is repeatability. Repeatability. So you should be able to repeat your actions. Okay. You always you look at your life, okay, from the childhood, and you understand that you're always encouraged to act, you are always encouraged to do actions which are repeatable, and you are always stopped to act which should not be repeated. Okay, so you are stopped from unrepeatable actions and you are encouraged to perform which actions which are repeatable. So repeatability is a very important aspect of normal human life, where we feel normal only when you are able to repeat certain kind of actions. So if every action is going to be a new one, then you really get scared to lead such kind of a life. So this normal life that we are referring to, it has given you freedom, and at the same time, it has given you freedom to repeat your actions again and again. That's what gives us a comfort zone. No, we do talk about comfort zone. Comfort zone basically means you are able to repeat your actions, and even the knowledge process that you say by hearting and whatever is like repeatability is very important in that context. The third important aspect is predictability. Okay, only if you can predict. Okay, there is a possibility of prediction in the normal life that we were referring to, where the individual with his psychophysical and spiritual mechanism is interacting with the natural world or physical world or social world that is existent around him, and he knows he can predict what others would do, and he can predict so many things. Of course, there are certain domains where he cannot predict, but largely his ontology, his epistemology allows him to predict what would happen, probably what would happen next. Okay, so this is a comfort zone that human beings have created in the normal. So repeatability and predictability are very important. Don't think that these are foolish concepts, because even the modern science is largely dependent on these two concepts. Okay, the modern experimental science is largely dependent on predictability and repeatability. Okay, only that is considered to be the knowledge now. Okay, whatever we are considering to be the knowledge, scientific knowledge, is largely dependent on these two concepts. These two are very strong concepts. They're very important concepts for the normal life. Okay, and freedom is another important concept which we have enjoyed a lot during our pre-COVID times, normal times. Along with these three, okay, freedom, repeatability, and predictability, there are two other strong foundations that we had during normal life. They are like trust. Okay, since you are able to repeat your actions, and since you think that the other also reciprocate similar kind of actions, you kind of build a trust on the other, trust on the system. Okay, and this trust is very important, whether it is social trust or whatever conceptual trust. Trust is very important for the human life, which existed during the normal times that we are referring to, which are pre-COVID times. And this trust is the one, along with the freedom, this trust is the one which makes the individual feel responsible. Okay, so the trust and responsibility were so important for the normal life that they have driven the human life to be in a very comfort zone, which we have thought as normal, whether it is normalized normal or a pure normal. I don't want to get into that, but basically that's what characterized. So the characterization of the normal is in terms of these concepts like freedom, predictability, repeatability, and responsibility with trust. Okay, this is the normal life that we had led during pre-COVID times. Now, fine, this is all fine. So now what happened to this normal? We lived this normal life, but suddenly what happened to this normal? We are in the transition period. Okay, this normal is affected. How is it affected? Suddenly one evening there was an announcement saying that the from now onwards the human life would be characterized by three things or four things. Okay, this is a sudden announcement that we have got, which is very important, which is required for our survival. Of course, it is based on the survival of the individuals. Okay, there is no denial of that. Okay, so but it is characterized by, just a minute.
I think we have lost connection with him again, no?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I lost my.
Yes, Poonam, please switch off your video. Poonam, please switch off your video. Yes, sir. You may.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my connectivity suddenly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what I was referring to is what happened to this normal. Suddenly, we have understood that for the sake of our own survival, we need to characterize the subsequent life from that day onwards with four very important things. One is lockdown. We have to lock down from going into the public places. We have to lock down within the premises where we live, and the second one is we have to be under quarantine, and we understood that we have to follow social distancing. So, quarantine, lockdown, social distancing are the important characteristics that have suddenly come into existence, along with a very interesting concept called sanitization. Okay, so suddenly it has become a reality for us that these four characterize our life activities completely. Not even a single aspect is left out of the characterization of these four. See, I talked about four important concepts in the pre-normal, I mean pre-COVID-19, and now in the immediate in the transition period. Okay, how this normal got affected is it has got affected with these four characteristics that I have referred to. Okay, so now what happened? If at all we have decided to follow lockdown and quarantine and social distancing and sanitization, what happened to that? Like, as I said, the individual in the life, individual is there, individual human being, and then the factual world, right? So what happened to the life now is the factual world that we are referring to is suddenly got suspended. And if you follow the phenomenological terminology, then this is suddenly suspended or bracketed. The individual remained the same, the world remained the same, but in the interaction between these two, okay, the world is suspended by the individual for some time. Okay, so the world is bracketed by the individual for some time, and the characteristics of this bracketing are lockdown, quarantine, and social distancing, and continuous process of sanitization of the individual in each of his activities. So the world, the factual world that we are referring to is the one which is bracketed. If it is bracketed, what does it mean? Okay, it means the possibility of repetition is bracketed. The possibility of predictability is bracketed. The possibility of freedom is bracketed. So, when we say the external world is bracketed, what do we mean by that is the repetition, the possibility of repetition, possibility of predictability, and possibility of freedom. All these three are suspended, and all these three are bracketed. Okay, so but what would happen consequent to this? Consequent to this bracketing of repeatability, predictability, and freedom, what would be the consequence of that? The consequence of that is, as I said, the major pillars of human life, human foundations of human life, called trust and responsibility, have lost their ground. Okay, once you understand that you don't have freedom, once you understand that you cannot have knowledge of repeatability and predictability, then the consequence of that is trust and responsibility, or which are foundations of human life, have lost their ground. Okay, that is the situation in which we are now. The transition period in which we are now is characterized by this loss of trust and loss of responsibility to some extent. This creates a kind of uncertainty. Okay, so this loss of not being able to trust anybody, not being able to be responsible of our actions, these two in fact create a kind of uncertainty in the minds of each one of us. What do I mean by this uncertainty? Each one of these concepts are so strong and so multifaceted, so enthralling to each one of us, that this uncertainty in terms of time and space, we have uncertainty in terms of time and space. And when I say time, okay, what I mean is the duration. There is an uncertainty regarding the duration of this present situation. So you don't know how long it is going to continue, how long this uncertainty is going to continue. In the similar way, spatially also it is disturbing to each one of us, like which place is safe. You have no answer. None of us have any answer, because we don't know whether being at home, whether we are safe. Okay, of course we understand that if you are moving in the public places, there is a problem to you, but you limit yourself to home. Even then, there is no guarantee that you are safe. So temporally as well as spatially, you are disturbed by this kind of uncertainty. But along with this, there is one very important and one very disturbing epistemological concept that I would like to talk about here. Like, we understand that we know something, and we understand that we don't know something, and we are always comfortable with this. That if you know that I know this, and if you are very sure that you don't know this, then we feel comfortable with such kind of clarity in our minds. But this COVID-19 transition period, because of this uncertainty and losing of various kinds of freedoms that we have enjoyed during normal times, okay, they create a kind of situation in which we are now, where your knowledge is, you know, only half of the unknown. Okay, the present situation, the transition period in which we are now, is characterized by knowledge of only knowledge only of half of the unknown. Okay, if you don't know something, that is fine. If you know it something, that is fine. But if you only know half of the unknown, that creates a kind of disturbance, uncertainty, and managing that kind of uncertainty is very difficult. You don't know COVID-19 completely, and at the same time, you cannot say that I don't know anything at all. Okay, you know only very little of it, which makes you more vulnerable and very difficult for you to handle it. Okay, so this unknowability is a very important aspect that really contributes largely to the uncertainty of the contemporary times. Along with this, there is a kind of uncertainty of a different kind. Like in this transition period, knowledge, the possibility of knowledge largely gets affected. Okay, so what I mean is, in the modern scientific sense, only something that is predictable and only something that is experimentable. See, basically, when you say experimentable, only the experimentable knowledge is the kind of knowledge. What you're largely saying is something that you can repeat, and something that about which you can predict, or the ones which you can understand to be knowledge. But in this transition period in which we are now, such kind of possibility has become very less and less. I'm not saying there is no possibility at all, but I'm saying this kind of possibility has become less and less, because you don't know. You always say, I'm uncertain whether I can do this or I cannot do that. So the previous knowledge, we also understood that the previous knowledge that we have is only partially useful to the present times, because you are not able to use the previous knowledge completely in the transition period. You can only use partially that, and presently the partial knowledge is insufficient to you, and no new knowledge is becoming possible in this kind of the present times, because everything is partial to your conception. So there is an uncertainty with regard to rapid fashion, as you were doing in the pre COVID-19 times. The knowledge acquisition now in this transition period is trying to be very careful, because you're endowed with a kind of uncertainty. So it has become the pace of the knowledge acquisition has become has come back to the minimum, and it is going in a slow pace, which is very important for all of us to understand. And that way, the modern science is also largely getting affected. And I think, though I am not an expert in this area, but I would say the larger debate that we have in epistemology, which begins with knowledge being justified true belief, I think there is a need to revisit such kind of conceptions once again, so that we can have a better understanding of justified true belief, or what is knowledge once again. But anyway, that's not my concern here. Okay, so now, like, human being is a relational being. That's what I have stated. Okay. And relational human ontology that we have that each one of us have, right? Human ontology is a relational ontology. Okay. And how is this related to the other? No, how? Because this relational ontology is also getting affected due to this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. You are not able to relate yourself in an affectionate, emotional and rational way in which you used to get, in which you used to affect or relate yourself to the to your fellow beings and family members and friends, others, as you were doing before COVID-19 times. So this relational ontology is getting affected, which again creates a kind of disturbance. And this also characterizes the present transition period in which we are now. So this relational ontology, the effects of this relational ontology argue or state that there is a need for re-understanding, okay, re-understanding the relation or reconceptualizing the relation between self and the other. Self and the other were understood in pre-COVID-19 times in a different way. Now the transition period necessitates a kind of reconceptualization and re-understanding of the relation between self and the other. How do I understand? How do I relate I with we? Okay. So it's in Indian conception, it is never I and you. Okay. It is always a transition from I to we. Okay. That's why that's how it has developed. Okay. So now there are certain things. How do you enrich this ontology, human ontology, relational ontology? There are at least three possibilities that I have in my mind, which I thought I should share with you. Like, how do you, when I say the relation between self and the other, these are the three possibilities. Self in the other, either you should start assuming and going further in relating yourself by thinking that self in the other. Okay. Say for example, there are migrant workers who have largely affected by this economy, which has collapsed now, and who were staying at different places away from their hometowns, and who wanted to go back by walk, who traveled by walk, etc. Right? So how do you relate yourself to the other, which is very important for us? So one way of looking at it is self in the other, and the other aspect of relational ontology is other in the self. Okay. So you can reflect you in the other so that you can develop a kind of compassion and whatever possible sympathy and empathy. And also you can either do other, okay, in the self. Okay, you can look for other in the self. And the third one is a very important one. Probably this would be more useful to the contemporary times. Self with the other. Okay, self in the other and other in the self. These are possible, but these are possible at only a minimal level, though they are required to be at the maximum. But what is possible to the large extent in the contemporary times is self with the other. You can always move with the other, and that is how you can contribute to the ontology of the others, and you can also enrich your own ontology. Unless, I'm saying this because we understand now the concept of happiness in a better way than any other times before. Okay, sometime back, if somebody said, somebody asked this question like, how can I be happy? You tell them that, yeah, you can do this, you can do this, you can help others, and that is how you can get happiness, which continues to be with you. And you have to make your family happy so that you can be happy. You have to make your society, you have to contribute to the happiness of the society so that you can be happy. People would think that that's nonsense. No, I don't really subscribe to this kind of a view. But now I'm telling you, my friends, like we clearly understand that unless your society is safe, you're not safe, right? We agree with this. COVID-19 has taught us a lesson saying that if you say I'm safe, you're never safe. You have to make your surroundings safe. You have to make your family safe. You have to ensure the safety of the society. Only then you are safe. Otherwise, you are never safe. Which means If you want to be happy, you have to make your people happy, people around you happy. And similarly, COVID-19 has taught us a lesson that you are never safe if you think that you're. See, even the former presidents of India and the highest ranked politicians, everybody was getting affected by COVID-19, right? So, which tells that unless people around you are happy, you can never be happy. Unless people around you are safe, you can never be safe. So, this is a wonderful lesson that we have got, which tells us that relational ontology is getting strengthened and which we have to seriously look at. Now I come to the last part of my talk. I will not take much time because I understand that I have disturbed you or I have been like contributing to a lot of confusion. Okay, but let me go further. The last part of my talk, where let me talk about what what occasions this new normal. Okay, let me come back to this question. What occasions this new normal? What constitutes this new normal, and what this new normal should promote? Okay, I would be addressing these three aspects in this part of my talk. Okay, so now, like, what occasions this new normal? Because I have explained you the characteristics of the normal, and I have also explained you how the transition period has affected the characteristics of the normal. Okay, now we are reaching the third phase where we would start talking about the new normal. Okay, so I'm taking you to the third level, third part of my talk, where I would be dealing with the concept of new normal. So, what occasions this new normal? Okay, it is not that this new normal is getting a welcoming reception. Okay, it doesn't have that positive, very welcoming kind of a reception. What occasions this new normal is something that is probably very disturbing to each one of us. And this new normal is occasioned by, number one, ambiguity. Okay, there is an ambiguity in our ontology, in our epistemology, in the sense that you don't know, the other is whether symptomatic or asymptomatic. Okay, see, you may think that, yeah, he doesn't have any symptoms. So can you touch him because he doesn't have symptoms? You don't know. Okay, so this ambiguity between symptomatic and asymptomatic existence that we have is one of the worst things that is occasioning this new normal that we are. Oh, can I request somebody to mute their microphone, please? Hello?
Yes. Yes. Yes, Francis. Yes, it's okay, sir. Geeta Mehta, please switch off your video, madam. Madam Geeta Mehta, please switch off your video. The streaming gets affected. Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yeah, one of the things that occasions this new normal is ambiguity between symptomatic world and asymptomatic world. Okay, and the second very important aspect which has occasioned this new normal, which would be occasioning this new normal, is inability on our part. Okay, inability of what? Inability to distinguish truth and trust and mistrust. Okay, you don't know whether you should trust the other, because it's not that you don't want to trust the other because the other is always trying to be cunning. Okay, that's not the case. In the pre-normal world, probably you don't trust somebody because he is either cunning or he is trying to deceive you. But in the present context, even if the other is innocent, you still have to distrust him. Okay, you cannot reposit your trust in the other, because, as I mentioned, this asymptomatic world, somebody may be very innocent and ignorant of the infection that he is carrying, and it may affect us. So there is a kind of inability that we have endowed with to distinguish between trust and mistrust. So we will not be able to manage that and maintain that in the new normal world, at least for some time. Okay, so there is an ambiguity, there is a kind of inability to distinguish, and there is a kind of ambivalence in choosing to act. See, as human beings, we always have to act, but there is an ambivalence that with which we would be living in this new normal with regard to whether I should act this way and what is right kind of action and what is wrong kind of action, which action would I consider to be ethical, which action would I consider to be unethical, which action I would consider to be ethical, yeah, which action I would consider to be ethical, and which action I should consider to be unethical. These are very difficult and uncertain kind of propositions which would be occasioning this new normal that we are referring to. So there is an ambivalence with regard to right and wrong, ethical and unethical as well. And the fourth important aspect is this is another very important aspect when we look at it from philosophical perspective. Like there is an epistemological impossibility that we would be endowed with. There would be an epistemological impossibility. What I mean by this is, you cannot go back to the normal. You cannot go back to the pre-normal epistemological condition. Okay, you cannot say that, yeah, now this COVID-19 is wiped out of the globe, and now we are all safe. So let us go back to the normal world, which is impossible. Okay, temporally, spatially, it is impossible. But I'm saying epistemologically also, it is impossible to go back to the times. Once you acquire certain kind of knowledge of uncertainty, knowledge of mistrust, you cannot go back to the earlier state of trust. Okay, so that would be occasioning the new normal into which we would be entering. Okay, so now this what would constitute this new normal that we are referring to? So it is occasioned by this ambivalence, ambiguity, inability, and epistemological impossibility. It along with these factors that occasion, what constitutes this new normal is a kind of anxiety and a kind of fear as well. Okay, so this anxiety and fear, for example, if we are talking about anxiety about the present and anxiety about the future. In the similar way, if we are talking about the fear about the known present and fear about the unknown as well. Okay, even within the present, you have known thing and unknown thing. So you will not be able to clearly demarcate the limitation between known and unknown, and that's what really disturbs each one of us. That's what contributes to the fear. Okay, this fear is not like you are fearful of electricity kind of one. No, you're fearful of something, an evil. Okay, this fear is a completely different kind of one, which is rooted in the psychological aspect of the individual, in the sense that there is a cognitive aspect of it, which makes us not being able to understand the distinction between the known and the unknown, and that's where we would be traveling continuously. We will be traveling the borders of known and the unknown. That creates a kind of anxiety and fear, which is very important, and which we all should know. Okay, so that we can equip ourselves better in entering into this new normal. And the very important aspect is, now, like I have explained, what is normal and what is the transition period and what characterizes this new normal. But what is it that we should do, or how do we look at this? How do we promote this new normal? Okay, should we continue this kind of a very disparaging picture, or should we try to create a kind of very attractive picture, or what are the tools that we have so that we can look at the new normal to be a better kind of place than at least the transition, if not the normal, because we cannot always go back to the normal. So what are the things that are required? So I have two or three suggestions in this regard. One, at the level of the individual. Okay, at the level of the individual, new normal should promote a kind of, each one of us, right? There would be a big transition from hospitalized health healthcare to individualized and family related healthcare system that is going to emerge. Okay, now you will not go to the doctor for every kind of disease. Only if it is really emergency, or only if you require a kind of surgery, you would be going, in the post COVID world, you would be going to the hospital. So individual hygiene at the family level, these would become very important aspects for the new normal. So at the individual level, your individual's realignment is very important. Okay, what do I mean by this realignment? You might have heard about this wheel alignment when you talk about four wheelers, right? Even two wheelers, we talk about alignment of the wheels. So, what do we mean by that? What happens in the alignment of the wheels? Each one of the parts would be related to the other so that this whole system works in a proper way. What we call by this is harmony. When we hear the word harmony, we will not be able to completely grasp the meaning of it, but you try to understand it through the concept alignment. Alignment means there are parts, and each part has to be in alignment with the other, and it has to be integrated to the other, it has to be in harmony with the other, and that is how it has to be aligned with the other. Okay, what I mean by that is, you look at the human body. Body is a perfectly aligned mechanism. Okay, machine, I don't know, or a being. Okay, because when I say this, what I mean is, when you're moving your right hand, your left hand will never come into a conflict with that, and it will never obstruct that. Okay, which means your body is created in such a way that at no point of time one would come in conflict with the other. And of course, intentionally you can always do that, no? But otherwise, when you're unconscious, the alignment is so perfect that everything works in harmony very well, and nothing comes in conflict with the other. Similarly, individual human being is comprised of certain kinds of constituents. Okay, every self, every individual has certain constituents, whether you call them physical or biological, psychological or spiritual, or whatever composition, whatever division that you make. I have no problem with that. But these constituents that you believe that you have to be aligned properly, realigned properly, and realigned to suit the health of the individual. And that is what is very important, and that is where I believe that yoga, no, the system of yoga, whether you call it Patanjali yoga or Jnana yoga or whatever, meditation, these are really going to help the individual in aligning oneself with himself, as well as with the world around him or her. Okay, so this alignment is a very important aspect at the individual level for me. Secondly, at the group level, what is important for me is reconceptualization of the institutions that we have developed. We have developed an institution called family. We have developed an institution called society. We have developed an institution called nation. We have developed an institution called global world. Okay, so there is a kind of reconception. This new normal or post-COVID world would demand from each one of us a kind of reconceptualization of all the institutions, artificial institutions that we have created for the comfort of each one of us, in terms of family, in terms of society, in terms of country, in terms of a globe. Okay, what I mean by each one of them, like when it comes to the family, let me say this, that the family space. Okay, until now you have various domains of life, like you have a domain of home and domain of work, domain of social domain. Okay, but now the domain of home and domain of work are going to get integrated. Okay, so this work from home norm, it is just a hint that is given to us, but it would be largely extended to such an extent, such a extent that unless tomorrow, to the coming up workforce, I'm saying this, tomorrow, unless you have a workspace at your home, you will not be eligible to be joining a particular company. Okay, so one of the qualifications of getting a job is would be basically possessing a workspace, peaceful and comfortable workspace. Okay, so this is how the domains like work domain and home domain are going to be closely conjoined. Okay, and it is not just that. No, it looks very simple, but it looks also innocent, but it creates a lot of complications, because you are able to go to the work In the process, you switch from one domain to the other, and this transition from one domain to the other becomes very peaceful and very comfortable, and it gives you sufficient time as well. Once your home becomes workplace and workplace becomes home, when both get integrated so close, your transition switchover time would be minimized, and it really affects each one of us. Now this is what we are doing. You get up and you think that, yeah, I have my lecture at 2 o'clock, so I have sufficient time, and then I would go on doing so many things at home which are required, and suddenly I realized that it's becoming 1 o'clock. But then I think that, yeah, I can manage it because I don't have to travel, I don't have to go anywhere, and this creates a kind of a complacency in my mind. And suddenly at 10 to 5, 10 to 2, I realized that, yeah, I don't have time at all. I have to switch myself very quickly so that I can get into this mode of talking. So which is a very big challenge, no, that the future generations would be facing, and each one of us who are in the transition period would be affected more and strongly in with this kind of an approach. The second one is social. The social system is also going to be affected strongly, because the social relations, social distancing is going to be characteristic of the new normal, social of the new normal. The social ecology that we have evolved so far has to be completely changed. So what kind of social ecology would evolve in the new normal is very important for each one of us to, especially the sociologists, to delve upon and try to come out with an idea. And the nation, see, in the globalized world that we talked about, where we thought world has become a global village, now we understood that that has created a big problem. In fact, some of the scholars have already started talking, saying that it is because of the globalization that the world is affected so badly with the COVID-19 pandemic, because it has allowed a lot of immigration and a lot of workplace transitions, etc. So this has made world to be a small village, and at the same time, the commutation between nations, international travel, all these things have become very easy, and that's what has created the base for the transmission of the disease, transmission of the virus COVID-19 so easily into every country that is possible. And that's how the blame some of the scholars have started putting on the globalization. So now we have immediately closed our borders, and we said no international travel, no international, people from other countries would be allowed inside. Okay, so this would be the characteristic for some time, and we try to be very careful, and we try to be this nationalistic, not in the sense of a different sense that I'm talking about, nationalistic in the sense that our country, the people of our country, the safety of the people of our country is to be safeguarded from this COVID-19 or subsequent such kind of virus attacks. And that is how we try to redefine the nation, redefine the nationality in the new normal life. And the last one is global. Okay, how do you look at this globalization? And I'm saying this globalization also would largely get affected because these multinational companies which have promoted globalization and further benefited by this globalization may have to transform or retransform themselves into a different kind of places. Otherwise, now we will not be probably going so enthusiastically going to such kind of big malls. Instead, we prefer to go to a small shop and buy whatever we want, right? Instead of going to a bigger place where there is a possibility of getting infected in a um, bigger way. Okay, so that's how the globalization also would definitely get redefined. So these are the things that are very important. At the individual level, we have to align ourselves. At the group level, there is a kind of reconceptualization of each of these artificial institutions that we have created. And now, like, we all have to be really creative and innovative in increasing the possibility of the repeatability or the comfort zones that we have created. Okay, so those are to be recreated in a different way, So recreation and reconceptualization are required. So we all have to be innovative and creative in increasing the possibility of the repeatability and predictability, and also basing ourselves in enjoying freedom and basing ourselves back in trust and responsibility in human race. Because whom do you trust? You have to trust the other human being. There is no other way. Even if you say I trust the God, that's not going to solve your problems. You have to trust the other individual who is living next to you, and trust, and also you have to feel responsible for your actions, without which no world, whether it is pre-normal or normal or transition or post-normal, is going to really help you. So how do you restore the place of these two foundations of human life called trust and responsibility? This is the biggest challenge that we have, which is very important for all of us to address. In this regard, let me just conclude with one particular point. We have always talked about the transition from ease to art, right? So when you are talking about new normal, are we talking about new normal in the sense that we have the present, and we are talking about the new normal in the sense of ease to art? Okay, what ought to be, what would be the normative kind of thing that we are looking at? I'm not doing such kind of a thing. There is another kind of thing, that alternative that is available in conceptualizing the new normal, that and or are. Okay, what I mean by that is, sometimes we think, let me give an example of the pre-modern and modern. Okay, so in some of the Western countries, either there is a pre-modern or only modern. In fact, there is only modern. There is no pre-modern at all. So in such kind of countries, it is either or. Okay, but in India, we find both modern and pre-modern coexisting together, in the sense that and, okay, modern and pre-modern, modern or pre-modern. Okay, so I would consider that the new normal life when we are looking at is not even, cannot be characterized by this and or kind of phraseology. Then what is it required? And when we are trying to conceptualize the new normal, what is required is ease to could. The transition from ease to could. It's not ease from art, from ease to art, or it's not either or are. It is ease to could. Whether it could be possible, what could be the future? Okay, what could be the new normal? When we say could, we root the could in the present strongly. When we talk about art, we are taking a blind leap into the normative structures. But when we are talking about could, we are strongly rooting ourselves in the contemporary present, and that's what is very important. And yeah, that's how I conclude my talk. Thank you so much to all of you for your patience, and I hope I could able to share some of my thoughts on what I have in my mind with regard to philosophical reflections of the new normal. Thank you so much. I
Thank you.
thank, yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. Yes, no, thank you so very much, sir. Thank you for the wonderful delivery. You have raised some very interesting philosophical insights relating to contextual to the COVID, post-COVID life. And I'm sure that your presentation has raised many questions in the minds of the participants. They have written some questions in the chat box. And I would request Professor Rabia Khatun, my departmental colleague, to please come up and coordinate this question answer session. Sir, I think it will be better if you take all the questions and then answer at the end. Or do you want to take the questions one by one?
Whatever you say, whatever would be
Okay.
fine for all of you. That's fine.
Okay.
Let me just take a pen. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Rabia? Rabia, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Come.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for your excellent delivery. We are enriched by your expertise and knowledge. Now it is the time for question answer session. There are many questions in the chat box. First question is from respected Madam Dr. Shyamashri Bhattacharya, ma'am. The question is, the concept of bracketing cannot be applied here. It is a technical term, and in no way do we bracket the external world in pandemic situation. Are you applying the term in a very loose sense?
Yeah.
Next
In
question.
fact, I'm using it in the very loose sense. Okay. I am more comfortable with the word suspending, and even there, when I say bracketing or suspending, in fact, we are not suspending the external world. We are suspending ourselves. Our interaction is the one which we are suspending. Okay. So that's what I mean. I'm not using it in the strict sense in which phenomenologists have used it. I agree with you. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Next question is from Dr. Shutapa Roy, madam. The question is, in the process of deconceptualizing the relation between self and the other, are we losing compassion, empathy, etc., as it is safer, more normal in the post-COVID era to distrust? Next
Yeah, this
question
is what I
also.
was saying. Actually, yeah, in the reconceptualization, in fact, in the present context, in the transition period, we see that there is lack of sympathy and empathy in understanding self and the other. That was existent at least in the pre-COVID-19 times. There is a slight erosion of that, because not because you don't have or you lost your sympathy or empathy, the qualities of sympathy or empathy, because uh, the erosion of this is largely because you are in a kind of uncertain state. When you are in an uncertain state, obviously it would be very difficult for you to empathize with the other. Only if you are in a balanced state, you would be able to do such kind of things. So I'm saying, in the new normal, when we are trying to reconceptualize, we have to bring such kind of conceptions back into the back into our life. And how do we do that? It is a big challenge that we have to nurture. So that's how there should be a lot of philosophical and psychological studies in terms of sociology that are required, so that our own conceptions of individual selves and the relation of the self with the other try to get related. Okay, so that is very important aspect. Thank you so much for pointing out that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, next question is, can we use the term ambiguity here? I think ambiguity is correct one. Uncertainty is not equivalent with ambiguity.
I'm saying uncertainty is because of the ambiguity. Okay, we are into an uncertain situation, and what characterizes, what occasions this uncertainty is a kind of ambiguity that we have in our mind. So when do you say that I am uncertain? When there is an ambiguity in the mind. That's what I'm referring to conceptually. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Please go ahead.
Sir, next question also from Dr. Shutapa Roy, ma'am. The question is, going back to the immediate past is impossible. But, sir, don't you think that we have gone back to a very ancient way of life which our ancestors would live? So, can we say that it is not revisited or reconceptualized, but rather it is going back to the roots?
Yeah, what I was referring to is epistemological impossibility. Once you know something, you cannot deprive your knowledge and go back to your ignorance. That's what I was referring to. But I'm not referring to the possibility that you cannot go back to your history conceptually and retrieve your history. In fact, I believe that if we are using yoga, system of yoga, Patanjali yoga, for our contemporary times, what we are trying to do is, in order to cope up with the present crisis, you are trying to locate the sources which can help you in resolving or making you comfortable in handling the present situation. And what pushes you in locating the sources is to look into your own self, like internal sources. And that is how you reach out to your tradition, you reach out to your self which is rooted in tradition, and try to retrieve the tools which would be helpful in resolving the present or anytime, wherever situation, in whichever situation you are. So that is how the rootedness of the self in the tradition is the one which always helps the individual in coming out with innovative tools which are embedded in the tradition, in resolving the contemporary crisis of any time. I truly believe in that. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Rabia, just a minute. The next question is already answered. Okay, so you can go to the next question by Mathura Alda, I think. Yes.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. There is a question from Meenakshi Pramanik, ma'am. Sir, in this context, can we use the is or derivation?
What is it? Can you read it once again?
Okay, sir. In this context, can we use the is or derivation?
Okay. No, this is again a kind of experiment that I'm doing. Okay. What I mean to say is, if you're trying to look at the new normal, which would be the future, okay, how do you look at the future? How do you conceive your future? Okay. So I'm saying, instead of trying to look at the future in terms of is and ought, I'm not strictly following what the Western discourse is. That's not my sense of it. I'm only taking it out of context and trying to use it for my own benefit here. So I'm saying I'm not following such kind of an approach as there is a transition from is to ought, or and or. I'm only following a different kind of approach, which would be is to could. Okay, that's my main stress. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There is a question from Mathura Alada. The question is, sir, as you made pronouncements that because of globalization, COVID-19 situation appears, which is also fused to other thinkers, to then would you go back to primitive or past or go ahead in terms of development? Please, sir.
Actually, I didn't get the question, but even then, let me respond to this. Okay, see, development, such kind of terms have to be redefined completely. Okay, and it is I can never say, or any of us can ever say, that the past knowledge is completely useless. Okay, I am only saying the past knowledge in the transition period is not really going to help us much. Okay, you have the knowledge, but it's not useful to you at this moment because you are confined to your four walls. Okay, so that's how the past knowledge is not able to completely help you out in dealing with the world around you in the transition period now, but that would be probably helpful to us in the post-COVID or new normal life that we are talking about. So in that particular sense, the development also has to be redefined and reconceptualized, if at all we are talking about development in that sense. That's why I said at the individual level, at the societal level, at the national level, at every level, this reconceptualization is required. Whether you want to call it development or you want to call it progress, but they are not going to be the same as they were in the previous times.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Now, I request you to, ma'am.
Yes, Rabia, thank you very much.
Any
Thank you,
question? Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
I have a very small question. That is, we are using the term that is new normal or the new normal, and also side by side we are using the term COVID, pre-COVID, and the post-COVID. Which will be more relevant to you? So that is my small question.
Thank you so much for that. No? In the beginning itself, I tried to give a clarification of that. For me, the normal is pre-COVID, and we are in the transition period, and the new normal for me is post-COVID. So this is how I have defined my purview in the beginning itself, and then I try to reflect on that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, for satisfying the queries of all our participants. To the participants, if you have any further questions, you can write to us, and we are going to forward your queries to Professor Balaganapati. And thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful lecture. It was an honor for us to have you here with us. and we hope to get you even in future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Sutapa Rai, for inviting me. And I really enjoyed articulating my thoughts and presenting them before you. I don't know how far they are useful to you or how far they are appealing to you, but it is an exercise that I've done, like thought experiment that I've done, and I'd shared with you. And if you have any questions or queries, I would provide my email address below. And
Right.
also, reflecting on the present situation, I have written something called, I argued for a kind of global lockdown calendar, where the world has to select certain days and close itself for those days. Okay, lockdown calendar. There should be a global lockdown calendar which is applicable to all the countries, all the nations, all the human beings. So that is what I
Yes.
have argued. I'll provide the link to that here in
Okay.
the chat box so that you can go through that. This would be very useful to the people who are
Yes.
engaged with the new normal. Thank you so much to all of you. Thanks for your patience. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you, sir.